Hey guys, this is ManToMan Podcast, a podcast all about basketball. My name is Jacob Rosenfarb, and I'm one of your hosts. My other host is Jeff Griffith.
What's up, guys?
And we have our producer, Josh Zaklis.
Hey guys, busy week of basketball.
That is true. Very busy week. We'll start with one of the more intriguing parts of the basketball universe right now. The trade deadline just wrapped up. I think we can all agree the big movers, depending how you look at it, big winners will be the Cleveland Cavaliers, as Jacob now sees them the Eastern Conference favorites, no question. Tell us what they did and tell us why.
I'm such a huge fan of everything the Cavs did. I'm Kobe Altman, General Manager of the Year, Executive of the Year. Now he locked that in on February 8th. Just because he saw his team, he saw the flaws in this team. This team was old. This team was unathletic. This team didn't match up well with the Warriors, and I assume he thought to himself, "Man, this looks a lot like the 2014 Miami Heat, the team that LeBron James left."
Yeah.
And I bet he's thinking to himself, "Man, I cannot do that again. I cannot do that to LeBron." So he went out and he traded all of his, not all, he traded a fair amount of his old, I don't want to say unathletic, but
his Derrick Roses.
His Isaiah Thomases, his Jay Crowders,
His D-Wades.
Players that necessarily didn't match up great with. They were independently solid players, but didn't match up great with the Warriors.
Right.
And he went out and nabbed 4 players who I just love. I'm such a huge fan of all these players, and then put them on the Cavs. I'm so hyped.
The more I think about it, the more I'm with it. I think what's interesting about this is it proves that if you put 4 guys who A, can play good defense, B, more importantly, aren't worried about their own numbers. They're not max contract guys who are concerned about taking points and stats away from LeBron and getting their own, as it were. You know, you guys like Rodney Hood and George Hill who are just really good role players. They're not guys they're not Derrick Roses who want to be the guy. They're not all these guys that he's played around, even in Miami on that 2014 team as guys started getting older with Wade and Bosh. Like he's got to be the feature guy is what I'm getting at.
Yes.
And having guys around him who can let him do that, I think is huge.
Yes.
And being able to defend. And I think you pointed out that at every position they match up with the Warriors.
They match up fantastically with the Warriors.
So, just before we get too far down the rabbit hole, we want to recap what 4 players the Cavs added.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. For just to clarify, the Cavaliers.
We have one caveat for you, Jacob. When you name them, give us why they match up well with the Warriors.
Okay, I'll do you one better. I'll tell you which player on the Warriors.
That's exactly what I want to hear. Give it to
with.
me, Jacob.
Okay, so we'll talk about the first trade the Cavs made, or on a chronological, I'm not exactly sure which happened first, but we'll talk about the most interesting one. Yeah, the Isaiah Thomas and Channing Frye to the Lakers.
Yes.
Channing Frye, Isaiah Thomas, and a 2018 protected first round pick to the Lakers for Clarkson and Nance. So Clarkson makes a lot of sense because he's athletic. He's going to come off the bench for them. He's going to be that third guard that you really need. He's athletic. We watched last night in the Celtics-Cavs game. He can really shoot the ball. I've been watching him a lot on this Lakers team because, as people know, I'm a pretty big Lakers fan. I am not a huge Clarkson on a team where he has to be the main creator, not his role. Not going to look good. He takes a lot of bad shots. I think he probably, realistically, almost overevaluates himself in terms of talent. But when you put him in a role like this, where he's playing with the greatest player in the world, and he has this ecosystem of great players around him, he's perfect.
Yeah, he shot 3 or 4 from 3 yesterday against the Celtics. Added 17 off the bench. When's the last time the Cavs had 17 points coming off the bench?
I don't. It might have been Mo Williams in 2007.
Exactly.
No. I think it's a fantastic matchup. He's athletic, and he's going to match up great when they play the Warriors and they need somebody to guard Curry. He will be him and Hill. They're going to throw those point guards at him.
Right.
They're going to throw these long, athletic point guards with big wingspans and just going to throw them at Curry and say, you're going to go over every screen and try and knock the ball. Just try and worry about that shot. That's all you have to worry about. I don't know. I think it's a perfect matchup.
So there's your matchup with Curry.
Exactly.
Who's getting Clay?
They'll go internally, I think, on Clay. They'll probably do a little bit of Clarkson as well. Okay. J.R. Smith makes a lot of sense. With Clay, you just need someone to run around with him.
Right.
It's less about being a true great on-ball defender. It's more about just someone who will go through those mazes of picks.
So is that a Rodney Hood then?
Sure, Rodney Hood works well.
They picked up from the Jazz.
Exactly.
In the Derrick Rose trade.
Incredible transition. We'll talk about that. They sent Derrick Rose and Jay Crowder to the Jazz.
Right.
The Jazz sent Joe Johnson to the Kings, and then he was bought out after almost immediately. And then the Kings sent George Hill, and the Jazz sent Rodney Hood to the Cavs.
Correct.
And so, like I said, George Hill matches up wonderfully with Curry. He's a long-armed, wily defender. He knows basketball. He's a good three-point shooter. He's just a good veteran presence on that team. He actually had some really interesting comments before the Cavs Celtics game where he's like, "Yeah, I really like this team because I know my role super well. I know exactly what they want, and I know exactly what we're trying to get to." When he was with the Kings, he went there simply because of the money. They gave him this incredibly ludicrous contract, but because they were the Kings and he was an older, established player, they felt the need to overspend on him. And so he went there, he got his money, and now he's going to contender, and he can really produce.
Mm-hmm. And then to wrap up the trade talks here, going back to the Lakers trade,
sure.
Who's going to get Draymond Green?
I don't know if that was handled in the... I think LeBron actually will guard Draymond a fair amount. I think Nance is a better on-ball defender than LeBron. And I think
that's who I was getting at.
I assume that's who you're getting at. I actually think Nance will guard Kevin Durant a fair amount.
Really?
I think Nance will guard Durant more than LeBron will.
Okay.
Just because they're obviously going to need LeBron more on the offensive end.
Sure.
Draymond at this point in his career isn't as intense a defensive cover as he was even like 2 years ago. He's kind of lost a step in athleticism. I mean, still a fantastic player, but that'll probably be the cover for LeBron. I think throw Rodney Hood at Kevin Durant, Larry Nance. I mean, obviously there's no player that's gonna shut down Kevin Durant, but I think the Cavs thought to themselves, let's get as many 6'4" to 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" wing players and these just long-armed athletic freaks, and let's just throw them out on the floor and see what we can do, because that's where the NBA is going. That's when the NBA positions are becoming extinct. It's now about getting as many players who can do as many things on the floor at once.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, the Cavaliers certainly looking like they figured it out. I mean, they beat the Celtics by 30.
Yeah, it was...
Or 22? 22.
It was
still a blowout.
It didn't even feel that close. It was
right.
it was a barn burner. And the funniest thing about this game to me was that it was Paul Pierce's retirement ceremony.
And they did it afterwards.
They did it after. They made all these fans sit in the stands and watch this blowout while they waited for Paul Pierce's retirement ceremony.
If you're the Celtics, are you doing that afterwards?
Yeah, you have to. I mean, they're definitely doing it now. Like, it was a weird call to do it, but they had to at least see this coming, possibly, that they get blown out. But I found that really funny. Did you also see that Ray Allen, instead of coming to the ceremony, went golfing with George Lopez?
Yeah.
George
That's a move.
That's
a power move.
That is a power move. To post it on Insta and be like, I'm good. I'm not going to go to Boston.
So I think we'll poll the room. If you're Ray Allen, are you going to Paul Pierce's ceremony, or are you going golfing with George Lopez? Josh, your thoughts?
Where was the golfing?
I'm pretty sure LA. I would assume LA.
I have to think so.
Yeah.
I don't know. LA seems like fun, and like Boston... The Northeast is great, but my favorite time to be in the Northeast is during the summer. Boston in the winter is rough.
It's
rough.
That's fair.
So if we're going purely weather, I'm going to go with LA.
All right, winter. Josh giving us the weatherman takes.
I like it.
How about you with it?
I mean, Ray Allen's so incredibly petty that I respect the move. They all hate him now when he moved to Miami after they all
won a championship.
Exactly, that weird thing. I mean, Rondo came out and was like, Paul Pierce is Ray Allen's no longer part of our group or whatever. So I get it, but I think it's a super petty move to go to LA. Or I assume he's in LA. LA, golf with George Lopez, post the Insta pic. I'm a big fan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with that. But getting back to the Cavs. By the way, I do agree. I would golf with.
Yeah,
George
you got to golf with George Lopez.
Going back to the Cavs, I think this is a conversation that you and I have had a lot about the East. Is obviously the East right now, it's the Cavs.
Yeah,
and it's kind of becoming the Celtics, but they're still, they're a deteriorated LeBron James away from being the Eastern Conference champions. Give me. We talked about this before. Differently now with the Cavs moves, what is the East looking like in 2 years?
Oh, in 2, interesting.
Maybe 3. Let's call it 2021.
Okay, I think Kobe Altman has really towed the line really well in Cleveland in that he's built for now. He's built a team that can contend with the Warriors, that will kind of make LeBron content, and fulfills all the goals they had for this year. But worst case scenario for them, LeBron leaves. LeBron goes to LA. LeBron goes to Houston. LeBron goes to New York. They're still okay for the future. They're
young. They're very young.
Exactly. They still have Clarkson. They still have C.D. Osman, who I love. They still have Kevin Love. Like, Kevin, he's still a really good player. And, that's still good. That's floor with a team of that caliber is still really talented.
Yeah. My question would be, Where is that team next year? If LeBron's gone, are they a 6 seed? Are they a 3 seed?
Middle of the pack in the East. I mean, I think the Sixers will probably take a step next year. The Bucks will probably take a step next year.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. There's some, you rise a little in the East with and with an elite talent like the Cavs falling. I think there'll be some shift, but I would imagine the Cavs make the playoffs next year, even if LeBron leaves.
Okay, so give me your 1 through 5 in the East in 3 years.
Ooh, in 3 years, just based off what they have now. I mean, obviously we can't predict free agency to a certain.
And where they're set up with opportunity with picks and cap room certainly.
I think the Sixers make a lot of sense as the 1 seed. The Bucks are probably
over the Celtics.
Yeah, I think the Sixers have a higher ceiling right now than the Celtics do.
Sure.
Just because Kyrie and all those picks are fantastic, but right now the Sixers have 2 bona fide stars, and the Sixers have Simmons and Embiid, and that's going to carry them.
So you don't think the Celtics core wins the championship? As it stands right now.
I'm less optimistic about the Celtics core. I think we watched last night. They really struggle against elite teams. I think I think Gordon Hayward coming back. And that's NBA big. Secret story. And Gordon Hayward's coming back this year. That's that's the thing. So that's going to be a huge thing. That's going to be a huge moment in this playoffs when he truly comes back to the player he was in Utah. He's an elite scorer. He's a great second option for the Celtics team.
And he's going to guard LeBron James.
Exactly. So that changes their whole dynamic as a team.
So wait, let's jump on that then. Do you think the Celtics still have a shot?
Oh, definitely. With a Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving led Celtics team will take this Cavs team
to 6 or 7.
Yeah, that's a great series. But
I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. I'm still taking the Cavs in that, but a Celtics Cavs Eastern Conference Finals this year, when both teams are fully healthy, would be a series for the ages.
So we have Sixers 1, Celtics 2.
Probably Bucks 3.
Bucks 3.
I don't know. I mean, it's really hard. I really like the Nets, honestly. I love what the Nets are doing. I love Kenny Atkinson. I'm a big D'Angelo Russell fan.
Okay.
They'll get something. Hopefully they'll. This is the last year they have to convey their picks to somebody.
So wait, talk to me about D'Angelo Russell.
Oh my God,
the Lakers on Twitter have been a little petty about him.
Yeah, they're.
In the past. Give me some takes.
That is one of my most. When I look back on that saga in Lakers history, that's the saddest time to me. Just because I say we as a Lakers fan, the Lakers organization screwed up D'Angelo Russell between. His rookie year was Kobe's farewell tour. Yeah. No, my bad. I'm sorry. His rookie season was 1 year before the rookie, and then his second year was the farewell tour, and it's just a weird season. That's not a great environment for a young player to grow in, and it's just, And between the whole Nick Young Snapchat thing, that was so weird. We're still really high on D'Angelo Russell. I still think he has a whole lot of talent, and I think if you're able to buy low like the Nets did on a 21-year-old former second overall pick who at the time of the draft people were incredibly high on. Yeah. People really saw, the comp I really liked during the draft and I still like going forward is James Harden. I think he has that kind of finishing ability. I think he has that kind of shooting ability. He's not an elite athlete, but he's a good athlete. And I think the Nets are building something solid.
Yeah, I don't disagree. My question to you then would be, do they have the pieces now to one day compete with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid or with this Celtics core in 2 or 3 years? Right
now, the only pieces I think they keep long term are Russell for sure, Jared Allen probably. They're center out of Texas. He's starting for them now. Right. He's really good. He's incredibly raw. That was the whole thing coming out of Texas with him. But he has shown some serious flashes on the defensive end. He is a wrecker on that end, and he really affects the game. I'm not exactly sure what his advanced stats are, but I would hope they would back me up on this, that he truly makes an impact. He truly protects the rim. He's mobile enough to switch, maybe not on the quickest of point guards, but he's on most players who they're going to run a pick and roll with. I think he's a bit, and I love players with afros. Players with afros are just phenomenal. So yeah, I'm a big Jared Allen fan.
So I have two more questions for you.
Sure.
In this line of NBA grilling. First one being a team that piques my interest is the Knicks. Okay. They've got these young pieces. Obviously, Kristaps going out with an injury is tough.
Yeah, that'll be rough.
They've got Kristaps. They've got Frank Ntilikina. They have some young guys, and they have this chance of LeBron. What's the Knicks' 3-year future?
It all depends on this offseason. So it depends how bad they get this year. If they get really, really bad this year.
Right now, they're projected around the 8th pick.
Yeah, and that'll just keep going down. I think it's Kristaps.
Sure, Kristaps absolutely. Yeah.
So hopefully, if they can find their way into a top 5 pick,
very likely, very possible,
and get one of these centers to pair along perfectly. If they imagine a world with Kristaps and Bamba, or Kristaps and DeAndre Ayton, or even Kristaps and Michael Porter. The possibilities are endless. If this Knicks team grabs another young star, I really like the core of their building. I think Frank Ntilikina is a really good young. I like how they bought low on Moutier. I think those are two really.
That was a move we didn't talk about in the trade deadline.
Yeah, I think there's a handful of really small buy low moves that made. I think Moutier was one of them. I think when the Rockets picked up Joe Johnson after the Kings bought him out, I think that's a fantastic move in terms of improving your team. But for the Knicks, it all depends on how good a draft pick they can get this year, what their pitch looks like to LeBron, because they have to make a pitch of some sort. I don't know. I wouldn't even call them favorites at this point. I mean, I think even Dark Horse is going a little too far. But they'll get a meeting, and it's still New York and still the Knicks.
Absolutely, it's still the Guardian.
Exactly, it's still Spike Lee and Michael Rappaport.
That'd be kind of fun. Actually.
Yeah, exactly. LeBron in New York would be a lot of fun.
I guess my final question for you in regards to the NBA and this where we currently sit, a storyline that I'm certainly curious about as a college guy.
Yeah,
I am really excited to see this really stacked draft class at the pro level. I want to see how these guys pan out. So my question is, looking at one of these teams, I mean, the Nets are there, the Magic, the Kings, who lose their pick next year. Who is a team right now that's maybe in the bottom 4 of one of these conferences, maybe bottom 5, that can be really good next year by getting a top 5 pick this year?
Who's in the
really good being playoff team?
Okay,
maybe a competitive playoff team.
I mean,
maybe give them 2 years. A team that's right there needs one piece.
I'm not sure if that team exists, but let's just going off what you said, bottom tier team that could really make some jumps based off one player would be the Mavericks. Okay, I think the Mavericks were
Dennis Smith.
Yeah, Dennis Smith getting a long-term partner with a Bamba, a DeAndre Ayton, where that a big man and a point guard combo that makes a lot of sense. And they have the top 5 coach. Rick Carlisle is still a phenomenal coach, and so I just when in doubt, I trust Carlisle. I trust that system. I think Dennis Smith is super talented. I think they can build a team around. I think that's a fantastic play. If your two cornerstones of your team are a point guard, a athletic freak of a point guard, who can get to the rim whenever he wants and will finish through contact, and a rim running another athletic freak, the center position, that's a great place to build from.
So the Mavericks right now, you have the number 3 pick.
Sure.
Who are you eyeing?
So just in this scenario, we'll have
Doncic goes first.
Ooh, I think
Doncic goes first.
Doncic goes first, and then
Bagley probably second, right?
Maybe a team. A lot will depend on what teams see. I think defensively potential from Bagley. If Bagley can prove to be competent on the defensive end, he's such an athletic monster, or he's such an offensive monster that I think people will overlook that.
Let's just say Bagley and Doncic are 1 and 2.
Sure. Ayton would be a clear-cut pick for me at 3 if I were the Mavericks. Ayton makes a lot of sense. Michael Porter, just because I think he's still extremely talented.
He might not come out. There's still a chance he doesn't come out.
He's 1,000% coming out. I would no.
His words, not mine.
Michael Porter, no. Oh my.
His words, not mine.
Oh man, no.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
This is Ben Simmons 2.0. Why would he go to Missouri? No, he's definitely coming out.
We'll see.
Hey, he's gonna come out. His brother's gonna come out.
No, not this year. Jonte's not coming out this year.
Jonte might come out this year. Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked. Just because, why not?
But why?
Because college basketball. This is a bigger debate. Less about college basketball. I think has kind of failed as a breeding grounds for great NBA players.
Sure.
I don't think we can really point to their college statistics or college accolades and say, man, based off these, we can pretty clearly show a correlation between great college players and great NBA players. Right. I think now we're seeing a trend with Simmons and Fultz that you can go to these smaller schools, both of them produced at a modest level.
A high level on a bad team.
Exactly. Neither of them made the tournament, and they were both first picks. And Simmons has obviously worked out fantastically. I still have faith Fultz will work out, and I think it's, and that brings me back to a bigger point that I think people are just leaving now just because I think it makes more sense to leave. I don't think building in the college game is the way to build your game anymore.
But Jonte Porter?
Yeah, that's my point. Any of these guys who have any sort of athletic upside, any sort of NBA potential, I think it makes more sense for them to go now as freshmen, go to the NBA, maybe get a G League contract, play there, like Malik Pope. Malik Pope out of San Diego State. Big fan of Malik Pope. After his freshman, he's a 6'10 wing. He can high flyer, guards all 5 positions. Exactly what the NBA is looking for. After his freshman year, lottery projection. Didn't go to school. Didn't go to the NBA. Stayed in school. Sophomore year, gets injured. Draft stock falls. Now he's like a late first, second rounder. Thinks, okay, I'll improve. I'll go back for my junior year. Junior year, defenses kind of haven't figured out. So now he's looking like a late first again, maybe early second. And so if he leaves, you become a late first. And if he stays, he's a senior now. And now he's 21, 22. And now what is his draft potential looking like? I think when in doubt, it just always makes more sense to leave.
I suppose. A guy like Jonte Porter, I don't know. But
I think we're going to be surprised.
I don't know. We'll see.
I think in the next couple of years, we could definitely see people who are incredibly unqualified leave for the NBA.
Well,
just because
we're seeing them be president, so it's okay.
Wow.
Well, with that hot political
takes.
hot take, is it even that hot? I think that should do it for our NBA discussions. Anything else on your mind as far as the NBA is concerned?
I can't wait. I mean, I've never felt more confident.
And the next couple weeks are going to be when the NBA picks up.
Sure.
The next couple podcasts
after the All-Star break.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Once we can get into mock drafts, once we can get into playoff conversations, we're gonna have some fun. I've
never felt more confident in a Warriors Cavs finals though. This is the most confident I've felt this year so far.
You've been telling me that the Warriors might not make it.
I've said this before. I'll say it again. I think, and I feel it even stronger now. I think there's a higher chance the Cavs make the final. Yeah, there's a higher chance. My bad. I'm sorry. I think there's a higher chance the Warriors don't make the finals than the Cavs not making the finals.
Okay.
I think obviously it's not a hot take to say the Western Conference is more competitive.
Right.
But I think it's generally assumed that the Warriors are just so supremely more talented. But I can't wait for a second round matchup versus the Thunder or
the
Timberwolves.
Rockets are one win behind the Warriors, and they've won 8 straight games. My God.
The Rockets are ridiculous. I can't wait. That Rocket, if things hold as they currently are, a Rockets Spurs second round matchup to face the Warriors would be basketball euphoria.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I can't wait. I wish we were still in school for a podcast about that.
Yeah, that is.
I don't wish we were still in school, but I do wish we could still podcast.
I'm just getting giddy thinking about it. I can't wait. I'm ready for the playoffs.
I think we do a remote phone call podcast.
We might have to. We might have to.
It's time. It's time for the playoffs.
I'm so ready. But speaking of playoff pushes, we're gonna get into some college basketball after a break. We'll catch up with you guys in a couple minutes.
And we're back. We've been talking about the NBA for a while now. We're gonna transition a little bit to more Jeff's forte. We're gonna talk about college basketball.
Praises be
his zone.
It's a fun time.
This is my zone. There's man to man, but this is my zone.
Boo. So college basketball certainly heating up. The NCAA just released their top 16 with seedings for all of them, with regions where
yes, they did. They're nuts.
If the tournament started today, where would those be? So Jeff, why don't you give us a little recap of what this?
All right, so we're looking through. The way it works is they rank the teams 1 through 16 just as they would in a basic NCAA tournament S curve. But then they give, since they're all the top 4 seeds, they kind of give them a little bit of an advantage based on where they belong. So, for example, like teams 1 through 4 are all 1 seeds. Teams 5 through 8 are all 2 seeds for the most part. 9 through 12 are all going to be 3 seeds. 13 through 16 are all going to be 4 seeds, but they're not necessarily going to match up 1, 16, 2, 15, etc. because they're going to give them some advantages based on the correlation of how high their seed is, and then therefore where they belong, and how much of an emphasis they get as far as where they should be placed.
Just a little pause for a sec. How big an impact do you really think that plays? Like, how big an impact do you really think a team like Virginia getting a region where obviously they're more centrally located? They're an East Coast team, so they play on the East Coast. That makes a lot of. Is that such a huge thing?
I think the importance is travel. That's probably the biggest.
Just
thing
in terms of time, in terms of
traveling
fatigue?
to Charlotte versus traveling to San Diego. I mean,
I guess, but
So
at
the end of the day, I think it's that. I think it has to do with fans. I think it just has to do with the general being closer to home is a nicer thing to do.
Okay.
It's a small thing, but they've always emphasized it, and it's just kind of. I mean, we've seen it in basketball. Teams don't play well away from home.
I guess, but
all
this
throughout
isn't
college
home,
basketball.
I mean, it's near home, but it's not even like their home court.
It's just kind of what they do. It's just kind of they give you a little bit of an advantage. That's not huge. It's,
no. Do you ever think it really affects final, like how, like even the Final Four? Like, do you really think where a 1 seed or 2 seed ends up?
I can't say I've looked at specifics. I do know that from my own experience, the one time that Syracuse was a 1 seed, they were sent and was sent out west. They lost in the Sweet 16, whereas when they were in the East as a 1 seed, they made the Elite Eight. Little differences, but getting back to the 2017 and getting away from teams that are actually good and not Syracuse. We're going to talk about so the South region has Virginia, Cincinnati, Michigan State, Tennessee in that order. Michigan State a 3 seed, a bit of a surprise as we agree. They were number 11 in the overall ranking. Villanova, Duke, Texas Tech, and Ohio State get sent east. Purdue, KU, North Carolina, and Arizona sent west, and Xavier, Auburn, Clemson, and Oklahoma sent to the Midwest region. Jacob,
so I'm extremely here for this. I like these groupings. I think these are incredibly intriguing groupings.
Absolutely.
I think there's some teams here that match up super well with their opponents, and just in terms of clashing of style, which 1-4 matchup really intrigues you?
Which 1-4 matchup?
Yeah.
Ooh, I really like Purdue, Arizona.
Okay.
Purdue, Arizona is a great 1-4 Sweet 16 matchup, and I think it could be an upset.
Really?
Because it's a battle of big men.
Yeah.
It's Isaac Haas versus DeAndre Ayton. It's also experienced guards, Alonzo Trier versus Vincent Edwards. They're relatively similar teams. They both have a pretty talented roster, but their biggest emphases are big men and experienced guards.
Okay.
And I think it's going to be a very interesting matchup because those are the things that win in March. Right. Experienced guards and talented big men. And I think Arizona and Purdue, they faced already this year, and it was a blowout in Arizona's darkest time of the last 5 years when they went to the Bahamas, which they're never going to do again. And I think it'd be interesting to see things like the revenge factor, things like Arizona's a lot better now, but they've seen Purdue, and how can they match up having gone through 3 months of improvement? Because we all said it in the beginning of the year, they're going to figure things out when they were whatever 2-3 after starting the season with those losses in the Bahamas. But I do think now we were right. They did figure things out, and they're the best team in the Pac-12. They're really the only team west of the Mississippi outside of Texas Tech and Oklahoma that's in these top 16, and they're figuring things out. They're putting it together. Their younger guys are starting to get some experience. They're using Ayton well. They're using Trier well. And I think them against Purdue and those two big men going at it, so much fun.
Cool. That I thought I was really impressed by Isaac Haas. I watched.
He's very good. He's bulky. He's strong.
I watched Michigan State Purdue, and I think that's the first time I watched a full Purdue game, start to end. And Isaac Haas is an animal. Yeah. Isaac Haas is really talented. He's so much bigger, it feels like, than everyone else.
It does. He looks like Ivan Drago from Rocky.
He really does. Yeah.
Purdue a couple weeks ago had Rocky Night at one of their games. I think it was when they played like Indiana or someone, and they gave out shirts, and one of them was a picture of. There was a poster, and it was a picture of Isaac Haas, and it said, "I must break you," or something like that. And it's what he is. It's a big, bruising, white, big man with blonde hair. He's Ivan Drago with probably maybe a little less of a punch and a little less of an accent. He's a great big man. I think it'll be curious to see him go up against this DeAndre Ayton, NBA prospect. It's basically the Isaac Haas and DeAndre Ayton are both talented big men. Ayton is the guy that everyone knows is the NBA prospect, and Isaac Haas is the guy that everyone knows is the 4-year talent at Purdue. So it'll be fun to see those two things go up against each other. Isaac Haas has more experience. Ayton's got a little more talent, obviously, a little more potential, athleticism. But it'll be cool to see them match up if one of them doesn't get picked off in the first or second round.
I mean, we kind of saw that play out this weekend when Jaren Jackson tried to guard Isaac Haas. That was a true matchup, like you said, of a fundamentally great college player and an NBA prospect.
Right.
And Jackson struggled. Jackson couldn't really handle one of the post, and it looked like it affected his offensive game because he had a poor shooting game. But
Producer Josh, I have a question. Jeff, out of the 16 teams we see here, is there anybody that you're like, well, I don't know if they belong?
I think there are a couple teams that are going to fall off this list, and those are Tennessee and Oklahoma.
Okay.
I, right now, according to my own S-curve, have Tennessee and Oklahoma both as 4 seeds. Tennessee being 14th, Oklahoma being 16th. And I think both of them are going to end up outside these top 4. I think they both profile as 5 or 6 seeds. Tennessee could figure things out, but losing to Alabama by 28 was ugly. And Oklahoma's now lost 3 in a row. So these two teams are trending outside of the top 16. Otherwise, I think most of these teams are going to end up in the top 4 seeds. I think we're going to see some shifting, obviously, but for the most part, other than those two, I think for the most part, this top 16 are the best 16 teams in college basketball. Teams that could jump in, West Virginia, Texas A&M. I could see Rhode Island slip in with a great resume, top 5 RPI. Otherwise, I think these 16 are pretty much the best 16. But to go back to what we were talking about, Jacob, not to it was a good question, Josh. I like
Thank
that.
you.
But going back to what we were talking about, I think one thing we often forget is that while the best players in college basketball are a lot of the young guys, Ayton, Bamba, all these top 5 guys are all freshmen.
Yeah.
The best teams are not freshmen.
No.
I mean, if you look, there was a stat yesterday. All 4 of these 1 seeds get 80% or more of their scoring from non-freshmen.
I believe it.
It's and I think that's why Purdue profiles well against Arizona, and I'd probably pick them against Arizona because they have the experience. A team that's here that could pull an upset for that exact same reason is a North Carolina.
Really?
A Joel Berry, I think senior
Sure.
guards win in March, and I think he could pull something together for that team. And that's just an example of a team that has senior leadership that we could see make a run in March because it's just true. We've seen it so many times over the last several years that seniors win in March. And another team, Cincinnati, Gary Clark, great senior. But there's a reason Virginia and Villanova and Purdue and Xavier are the top 4 right now, and it's because they are good, experienced, talented teams that know how to just get W's. I mean, it's just what it boils down to.
So speaking of 1 seeds, who is the first 1 seed to fall
In the bracket?
in this tournament? And not in when the final tournament comes out, and we get let's just assume these are 4 1 seeds: Xavier, Purdue, Villanova, and Virginia. Who is the first one to fall?
It has to be Xavier.
Really? Why?
Purdue, Villanova, and it's nothing against Xavier.
Sure.
They're a great team.
Yeah.
They have 2 great seniors, Trevon
Yeah.
Blewett and J.P. McCura. But I think Purdue, Villanova, and Virginia are just such well-oiled machines. It's so hard to picture them being upset by anybody.
You're throwing Purdue in the group of Virginia, Villanova.
Well, Virginia, Villanova is a step above Purdue.
Okay.
But Purdue is a step above Xavier.
So it's Villanova, Virginia
Are their own class.
Purdue kind of in their own class, and
Yes.
then
Purdue if they'll be the first team to lose if it's in the Sweet 16. But Xavier's the one team I could see losing before the Sweet 16.
Which of those 4 is susceptible to a bad matchup? I think Purdue has a very great style, but I could see them being just run off the floor.
Yes, you would want to say Virginia, but their style beats everyone.
Exactly.
It's like you'd think the team with the most specific, unique style would be the one to be susceptible to a style matchup. But Virginia's just so good at what they do, that pack line defense, that slow grind out style. I think it is Purdue, stylistically, that could get a bad matchup. And I think an example of that bad matchup would be Arizona.
Okay.
Because they're similarly built, but they also are much faster paced of an offense.
They just have better athletes. They're just going to keep just trying to
Exactly. They'll win a track meet.
Exactly.
Purdue. But I think stylistically, it's probably Purdue as the team you've seen they get knocked off for a style reason.
Makes sense. So which of these groupings as a whole is most intriguing to you?
I don't want to go back to the West with Purdue, Kansas, North Carolina, and Arizona, but I think I have to.
Okay.
They all intrigue me for different reasons, but the thing about the West is, like, for example, the South, every other region has these newbies, these teams that we know they're good, but are they really going to hold up in March as teams who haven't experienced before? Texas Tech in the East, Tennessee in the South, Auburn in the Midwest. These are teams that are susceptible to an upset early on. Clemson, another one. Oklahoma, another one in the Midwest. The West is the one region where I could truly predict all 4 seeds making the second weekend.
Wow.
Because I think they're obviously no one is safe from an upset.
Of course.
But I do think these 4 teams, if any of these 4, Purdue, Kansas, UNC, and Arizona, are susceptible to an early loss, it's probably UNC. Just because we've seen that they aren't much past Joel Berry and Luke May.
Yeah.
But I think those 2 can carry them to the second weekend. But this Sweet 16 matchups, Purdue, Arizona, and Kansas, UNC, that's a Sweet 16.
That would be incredible.
Those 2 matchups combined decimate every other 1-4, 2-3 matchup that's on this list right now.
Kansas, North Carolina. Can you imagine how incredible?
So much fun.
Roy Williams, just 2 blue bloods just going at
his old team.
Exactly. Roy Williams not returning to Kansas, but playing Kansas again.
Yes.
2 blue bloods.
I love the idea though of a Cincinnati Virginia Elite 8 game because Cincinnati. This is my tag. You know how John Rothstein has his tweets like West Virginia tougher than a weekend at your in-laws.
Shout out to FanRag.
Cincinnati is the Virginia that no one talks about.
I get
They grind it. They are slow. They are hard to watch. But at the end of the day, they're good and they're athletic and they're strong and they're bruising. And they'll beat you. They'll be glad to beat you 55-45.
Yeah. See, I don't think a Virginia Cincinnati game eclipses like 80,
no, the
80 total points.
Vegas over under is 100 of that game.
Oh, I'm taking the under. I'm pounding the under.
Honestly, Virginia Cincinnati would be a fun Elite 8 game. It would be an Elite 8 game where it's like it feels like a freaking soccer game because every shot feels so important.
Every basket.
When you're playing against Virginia, a 6-0 run feels like a 20-0 run. It's just the way Virginia plays that you feel like you're so close with them when you're down by like 4, and they make it 10, and it feels like it's over. And that's because it is.
Yeah.
Virginia, aside from the 2016 Elite Eight, does not blow 15-point leads. They just don't anymore.
Yeah.
Of course they did.
This is a different Virginia team, I think. I think this team is way more talented.
Agreed, and I don't think you can press them. Sorry to bring it up again, but when Syracuse beat them in 2016, they pressed the crap out of them. And the whole story was Jim Boeheim brought on the press at the right time. He called the press, and Virginia couldn't be sped up. They couldn't play fast.
You can't figure this out. Jeff is a fan of Syracuse.
In case anybody didn't know yet. But back to my point, Syracuse sped them up. And that was what Virginia couldn't do. Malcolm Brogdon and London Parantes couldn't be sped up. This team can.
Yeah.
I mean, Cuse 2 weeks ago pressed them, and they just broke it every play. They got like 6 plays in a row where it was just pass, baseline dunk. Easy. And John Rothstein says Villanova is a Fortune 500 company. So is UVA. Wow. That's my take.
Bold take.
This year UVA just gets it done. And they beat Duke. I mean, they lost to Virginia Tech, but you've made a point that was Virginia Tech's Super Bowl.
That was Virginia Tech's biggest game for Virginia.
Yes.
Who cares?
Yes, that was their Super Bowl. And at the end of the day, rivalries in college basketball matter.
And
Virginia definitely wanted to win this game. But you have to know Virginia Tech wanted it more.
Exactly. Conference play and rivalries
and of course,
in college basketball.
Virginia Tech's in the bubble, too.
Exactly. That was a huge win for them. For Virginia, what does that really mean?
It doesn't. Clearly, Virginia's still the number 1 team in the March Madness rankings, and Virginia Tech moved up and off the bubble. Like, that's the difference in that game. But at the end of the day, Virginia is a super talented team, and I would absolutely I would pay thousands of dollars, I won't, but I would, to see them play Villanova in the title game.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
I mean, I would want to see like a Virginia-Villanova and then 2 randos kind of Final Four, but it has to be Virginia-Villanova.
That kind of
would be so much fun.
Not the likeliest, but I could definitely see where Virginia and Villanova just kind of roll through their regions, and the other 2 are just chaos.
Yeah, I could see like, Virginia-Villanova and then like, I don't know, West Virginia and
UCLA,
Texas A&M or Nevada or Gonzaga or some rando that just makes the Final Four, like a 1-1-5-6 kind of thing or something like that. But at the end of the day, Virginia and Villanova, if they don't make the championship, the NCAA is going to lose out on such a great chance to have one of the best games it's ever seen. So Virginia-Villanova will rival Villanova-UNC.
Yeah, that would be a fantastic
So
game.
much fun.
So with the conclusion of the football season, I think a lot of college basketball people are just learning about college basketball now, are really educating themselves on who are the elite teams. And they're going to look at this top 16 and they're going to be shocked by some of the names.
Right.
So let's do a little rapid fire. You're going to tell me why these non-traditional great basketball teams are dominant. How are these teams doing so well? Why are these teams primed for a Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four run? So the first I'm going to go with Auburn.
Auburn is wild. Auburn is very interesting because they just don't lose. They are 22-3. They've taken 2 losses in the SEC schedule by a combined 6 points. And they've got some good, relatively experienced players. Last couple years, we've seen them be able to kind of compete in the SEC, pull off an upset or 2, make a little bit of ground in the SEC tournament, but they haven't truly been there. And this is the year they put it together. Bruce Pearl is still a very good head coach, and regardless of where he showed up in the FBI probe 2 months ago, or 4 months ago.
No one needs to know about it.
No,
let's push that story.
The NCAA doesn't want us talking.
Let's cover it up. So at the end of the day, I think Auburn just has been finding ways to get wins, and at the end of the day, they've got great balance. They have a very deep team, and they have 7 different players that score at least 5 points a game. So at the end of the day, I think they have a lot of depth and the ability to play with anyone in this tournament. I don't know if they'll be able to beat elite teams because they just don't have the March Madness experience of a Virginia or a Villanova or a Xavier or even a Purdue, but they're still a very good team, and they definitely deserve to be where they are right now. Top 5 RPI.
Makes a lot of sense. Talk to me about Texas Tech.
Texas Tech. People think of Texas Tech, and even me, when I first looked at Texas Tech, I thought to myself, oh yeah, they're the team that puts up a lot of points, right? No, that's their football team. Football team gunslings for 55 points a game. Their basketball team holds opposing teams to just 62 a game, which is good for 5th in the entire NCAA, behind only the likes of Virginia and like the elite defenses. So they're right there. With Virginia's and Cincinnati's of the world in terms of the kind of defense they play. They held Kansas State to 47, Iowa State to 58, South Carolina to 63, Oklahoma to 65 to 75, which Oklahoma's a high flying offense. At the end of the day, they've struggled early in Big 12 play, but they've put together 6 straight wins. They won 3 in a row on the road and 3 in a row at home, and they've got a very interesting schedule coming up to potentially win the Big 12, which would be the first team to defeat Kansas in the Big 12 in over a decade. And I think they're going to have to play Kansas on December 24th at home. They have to play Oklahoma at home. They have to go to West Virginia. They got to play TCU. Their schedule isn't easy, but they've set themselves up right now to certainly be deserving of a top 10 ranking and a potential to make a run in the March Madness.
So the final team I want to talk about is final weird, strange. I think this one kind of is a little more known as a basketball school rather than Texas Tech and Auburn, but Tennessee. How is Tennessee in this?
Tennessee, I don't think should be in this.
Wow.
Because we just saw a couple days ago Tennessee get absolutely walloped at Alabama by a final of 78-50 to a bona fide bubble team. To be fair, they just won at Kentucky.
Yeah.
So they've been and they blew out LSU, they blew out Ole Miss. So they're playing good basketball. I do think they're one of those teams, like I said, I think I said earlier, that they're going to fall out of the top 16 when all is said and done. So I don't think when people make their brackets, they're going to be like, whoa, Tennessee's a 4 seed. They'll be like, okay, Tennessee's a 6 seed, because that's what they earned, and that's what they're going to probably earn. But they're an interesting team. They play pretty good offense. They shoot the ball very well. And they're like Auburn, they're finding ways to win in a deep SEC. So I mean,
Rick Barnes.
They don't play another ranked team this season. Their toughest game is a home game against Florida. So they could very well finish the season with 22, 23 wins, which for an SEC team is probably good for a 5 or 6 seed. But yeah, they're a legitimate team. And I wouldn't pick them to get out of the first weekend.
Wow.
But I could see them doing it.
Return of Rick Barnes for relevancy. Good for him. It's incredible to me that if you had told me at this point, we'll just say a couple months ago, if you had said, hey, who in the first release of the top 16, they're going to be 2 SEC teams in there.
And they're not Kentucky.
Who are they?
Florida,
they're not even Kentucky and Texas A&M.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, nope, it's Auburn and freaking Tennessee.
I think we agree that's going to change. I think Texas A&M will end up there.
I'm not sure if they get a top 4 seed, or a 4 seed, though, even.
They could.
Is their resume really strong enough?
And here's the thing about Texas A&M. Texas A&M really struggled to start SEC play. I mean, they started 0-5 in SEC play, but they've won 4 of their last. They've won 6 of the last 8, 4 in a row, including wins at Auburn and at home against Kentucky by 11, and they play no one else. They go to Missouri, they go to Arkansas, they go to Vanderbilt and Georgia, they play Alabama and Mississippi State at home. They're probably going to end this season with close to 23 wins.
Wow.
And I think they can make a run in the SEC title game and the SEC tournament. And if they get to the title game, I think they're a 4 seed.
Really?
Based on what they've done. Because their non-conference resume is outstanding. They beat West Virginia by 23. They beat USC. They narrowly lost to Arizona. They beat bona fide bubble teams like Oklahoma State, Penn State. They beat a good Buffalo team, which is a good RPI win. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I believe they have at least 5 wins against the RPI top 50, which is not exactly very common.
No.
Like 5 against the top 50 is pretty much the baseline for, you've got a good resume. And I think A&M has what the committee's looking for, which is quadrant 1 wins and road wins. And I think they're going to be able to pick up 4 more road wins potentially down the stretch and eventually be a 4 seed.
So going forward, the power of conference tournaments is undeniable. I think when the committee is selecting their tournament teams, I think it's hard to separate recency bias from everything they've done as a whole. So as a result, conference tournament champions are kind of
conference tournament champions are automatic bids.
Yes, I know, but let's
Virginia would win the
a Texas Tech, if they were to win the Big 12, like the Big 12 tournament.
If Texas Tech wins the Big 12 tournament and regular season title, they could be a 1 seed.
On it, exactly. That's my point. So they're just, even if they're, I mean, the resume is strong. Don't get me wrong about Texas Tech, but that leaves such an imprint in a committee's mind.
At the end of the day, I think Villanova kicks Xavier off of the Big East, off the top line.
Yeah,
solely because they beat him once and probably gonna beat him a second time.
You have to have in a pretty exceptional conference have 2 1 seeds.
If the only scenario where I see 2. Okay, there are 2 scenarios actually where I see 2 1 seeds out of the same conference. If Michigan State and Purdue have a barn burner of a Big Ten title game, don't lose it all again in the regular season, and Michigan State wins it, they might both be 1 seeds. Same deal in the ACC. If Duke were to beat Virginia in the ACC title game, I think they're both 1 seeds.
Okay.
Obviously, if both of those things happen, Villanova's like, no, we're still a 1 seed, so one of them's getting kicked off.
Yeah, obviously.
But I think Xavier is definitely going to end the season as a 2.
That makes sense. I think that's probably fair for that.
But the power of conference tournaments is very important. And I think, between the likes of Duke, Michigan State, I think Kansas can play its way back onto the number 1 line. I think, honestly, just because they're still somehow finding ways to win. If Clemson were to somehow make a run in the ACC tournament, they'd be a 1 seed.
That's ridiculous.
Clemson is the most confusing team for me because they should not be this good.
I don't understand how Clemson's good.
When they lost
Grantham,
Devontae Grantham, when they lost Grantham to a season-ending injury, Jacob and I both agreed they were going to fall off the face of the earth. At that point, they were mid-tier top 25 team.
Who had just lost their heart and soul.
Player.
Yeah.
And they've gotten better. They're better now than they were then. They're number 9 in the committee's rankings.
I don't understand.
There are literally 5 teams between them and a 1 seed. And Clemson has a decent schedule down the stretch. I mean, I'm trying to find it, but they're obviously playing in the ACC, so they're going to be tested. But they have Duke coming up. They go to Florida State. So, I mean, in all reality, they probably don't play their way onto the 1 line. But if they can beat Duke, the rest of their games in conference are winnable. Get into the conference tournament, win some games. This could be a 2 seed, a 1 seed. Honestly, they have an easy schedule remaining, so we'll see.
That would be ridiculous.
It would be so stupid, but
so just talking about the tournament as a whole, I pulled up Jeff's S curve. You can find it on Sideline Intel.
Yes, every week I got a new bracketology going up on Sideline Intel, but daily I am updating my S curve of 1 through 80.
Peep that on, like I said, Sideline Intel.
Gotta peep it.
Definitely check that out.
Gotta check it.
So also follow at Real Ryan Sharp.
Oh. Don't even a Twitter follow.
I think I just got 30 cents from Sharp by doing that.
So let's talk about double-digit seeds. And
my favorite seeds.
So let's talk about some teams that really could make some moves in March. That really could upset something. That really could make some noise.
You know who could? St. John's.
Interesting.
Josh, St. John's is not going. You heard it here first on ManToMan podcast. St. John's is not a tournament team and will not be a tournament team. Final answer. Moving on.
Wow. I don't disagree.
We had a discussion, and I maintain that I think they can make it. Granted, Jeff knows a lot more about college basketball than me.
Yes, here's the thing. Josh doesn't know anything about college basketball,
but he believes
that St. John's is going to be a tournament.
But
St. John's has 13 losses.
But they beat Villanova and Duke, and that's all that matters.
Yeah. I am not entertaining this heresy. We're moving on to double-digit seeds. Actual double-digit seeds, not fantasy double-digit seeds. Moving on.
They're going to be a 16. They're going to play in. They're going to win. And then they're going to upset a 1 seed.
How would a team be a 16 seed?
They're going to upset a 1 seed. I'm telling you right now, Jeff.
Okay.
And this is why he's our producer. Please ask me another question before he starts talking again.
So let's throw around some double-digit seeds. Your beloved Buffalo has
my Bulls
have fallen to a 13 seed.
Well, in my bracket, they fell to a 13 solely because UL Lafayette won, Vermont won, New Mexico State won, and Buffalo lost. That's really the only reason they're 13. In my mind, they're still probably going to end up at 12 or even an 11. They're a talented team. Their resume speaks for itself. They played some tough teams in the non-conference. Some tough teams that for a team like Buffalo, that a MAC team wouldn't necessarily play. They have a very good mid-major resume. Their RPI ranks at 32nd. Their overall strength of schedule is 66th, which is outstanding for a MAC team. They don't have a ton of good wins, but they've played good teams, and therefore their RPI is being pulled up. So Cincinnati, Texas A&M, Syracuse, and St. Bonaventure are all teams they've played in the RPI top 50. Cincinnati and Texas A&M both being in the top 10, top 20. But at the end of the day, their best win is a Toledo team that ranks 69th in the RPI.
Nice.
And they just haven't taken losses. Their only losses are Northern Illinois, Kent State, South Dakota State, and the 4 good teams I mentioned. So I think Buffalo is a good team. Stylistically, they match up well with a lot of teams because they run the floor. They can shoot the ball very well, and they're senior-led.
Yep.
And I think they're a team that could pull some upsets. I think if there's a team outside of the because 12 is obviously we can pencil in
1 12 seed will beat a 5 seed,
and it could be any of them. New Mexico State, Louisiana Lafayette, Buffalo, Vermont, any of these teams.
Big Vermont fan. I think Vermont's real nice.
Vermont's legit. They had a chance to beat Purdue last year, not should have, but they had a chance to beat Purdue last year, and they came up short. But
what I like about Vermont is that they know their style. They're a pound it within the hoop. They're going to get the ball as close to the basket as possible, just pound it, and just be that type of team.
Absolutely.
And they know that, and they just thrive on that. Right. And that's, I think, if they match up with a 4 or 5 seed that just kind of thrives on talent, like in Oklahoma. An Oklahoma-Vermont first-round matchup would be fantastic.
West Virginia, Vermont.
Interesting. That could be fun.
But I think going beyond that, there's one team in here that I am a big fan of above the 13 seeds.
Oh, wow.
And they're close to home for you. That'll be the UC Santa Barbara Gauchos.
Let's go.
I could see UCSB picking off like an Ohio State or a North Carolina. Yes. And I think they're rolling. Last year, the turnaround at UCSB cannot be overstated. They were like 8-22 last year. They're ripping through the Big West Conference. They just killed CSU Northridge. They beat UC Davis. I think they're gonna be. They have great coaching. They have great seniors, and they just have that winning mentality that I think is going to serve them well.
They have that it factor.
And they have the it factor. They have the IT factor. And I think, 19-5 overall, a top 80 RPI. I like UCSB. And I might just pick them to beat a 3 seed in the match.
Man, I cannot wait. UCSB return to relevancy. Let's go.
And then, I don't know, I can see Bucknell pulling off a 15-2.
What about the return?
At this point, that's all conjecture.
The return of Florida Gulf Coast.
Florida Gulf Coast, if they get a 15, they might pull some crap.
That'd be incredible. Again,
I would love to see Florida Gulf Coast play Duke, because Duke right now, I'd have to look it all up, but there have been some interesting correlations pulled between this Duke team and the metrics that they run by and the style of play and the freshman heavy roster. And the teams that lost against Lehigh and Mercer.
Jabari Parker team
yes,
that
lost to Mercer.
Yeah.
And the Mercer Bears were basically 2014's FGCU Eagles. And I think... Hold
on. The 2014 FGCU Eagles will live in college basketball lore.
The Mercer Bears were 2014's version.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. Which
FGCU won in 2013.
That was a Georgetown year, right?
Yes.
That is one of my
God bless that game.
They even defeated my San Diego State Aztecs.
They did, and they almost beat Florida in 2016.
I know. Florida Gulf Coast is phenomenal.
But I do think they have a shot to beat somebody.
Shout out to Andy.
At this point, 15 seeds is conjecture. But that's a couple teams I could see, just randomly pulling it together, getting a win. But
and Andy Enfield returning USC Florida Gulf Coast in a Sweet 16 matchup or something.
Between a 10 and a 15,
exactly. I like it. So yeah, any other thoughts about college basketball as a whole that you want to vent about?
Oh, I'm really pumped for some of these mid-majors in the 5 to 7 range.
Yeah.
I love Nevada. I love Rhode Island. And I think St. Mary's can make some noise. St. Mary's obviously lost to Gonzaga. Yeah. By the way, don't sleep on Gonzaga. They just beat St. Mary's handily on the road.
Gonzaga's still real good. They kept most of those players from last year's championship run.
I really think Rhode Island can make noise.
Wow.
E.C. Matthews is a talent. He's probably the best mid-major player in college basketball.
Ooh.
I would make that
That's a take.
As far as NBA potential,
I can never pronounce this kid's name right, but the kid out of St. Mary's,
Jock Landale.
That guy, yeah,
he's very good too.
Yeah, that might.
But I love E.C. Matthews, and I love what he brings to this Rhode Island team, which
sure.
is a pure scorer, an athletic guard, and I think led by him, an experienced guard, I think they can make a run. And depending on who they get, right now in my S curve, my 1 through 80, they would be facing off with Clemson. They win that game.
Oh, wow. Book it right here, Man-to-Man Podcast.
Book it. Rhode Island will beat Clemson in the March Madness if those teams play each other.
Wow. I think that's the perfect way to end on that kind of hot take.
Yep.
I think
Clemson sucks.
Well, folks, it's been another edition of Man-to-Man Podcast. I think it was a really good episode. I'm really happy this one.
Just eclipsed an hour. I'm proud.
Yeah, good for us. Yes. All right. And we will see you folks next week.
Yep.
Are you anti-folks? I'm